seat, sip some wisdom, and stay a while. This is the Prosperity Lounge, where growth gets personal. Step inside, we're breaking chains. All right. Good evening, everybody. I think we got our connection back. Sweet. So we have contingency plans. Back up on backup, Jeff. We got Jeff Tallman in the audience tonight as a guest. I'll bring my camera here.
What do you say, Joey?
Doing well. How you doing?
Glorious Friday afternoon.
It sure is. It
Our
sure
little
is.
dark corner of the universe.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this conversation tonight. It's going to be fun. So, going to start the show pretty soon. I've got a lot to cover at the top, and then we're going to bring Jeff in to kind of talk a little bit about prosperity, community, ship, and what he's got going on, which is something pretty cool. Right in the middle of something. Talk about that a little bit. So get ready, everybody. We can start soon. And thank you for joining us. If you got questions, put the questions in the chat, and we'll get to them when we can. And yeah, I appreciate everybody being here so far. Thank you so much. And we're about a minute or two away from the top. Again, thank you all this last week because I was away. We'll cover that where I was, what I did, what I took away from that event I was at, and we'll have some good fun. All right. So hang tight, and we'll get started shortly. All right. We're back. Just this is Prosperity Lounge, where it meets freedom and growth gets personal. I'm Joey Russell, best-selling author, coach, and business growth strategist, helping people take back control of their finances, their businesses, and their future. Well, I gotta say, welcome back, everybody who's here. It's been a while. Actually, it's been a week or so. Missed you guys last week. You guys had a replay. Guys, everybody on YouTube here. You got to watch me drive home in the car, do a live stream. That was fun. But we are here tonight. And before we jump into our conversation with Jeff, I wanted to share a quick reflection of an incredible experience I just returned from and why we weren't live last week. And that was we were at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia for their 2025 CEO Summit. Now, for 2 days at the summit, it was mostly like 4 days we were there, but 2 days at the summit, we were surrounded by leaders of faith, purpose, leaders of industry, political people from across the world, founders, CEOs, public servants, educators, students galore. It was people who understand leadership, and people understand that leadership isn't about status, but about stewardship, not about spotlight. but about doing the right thing. The biggest takeaway for me from that event was that the leadership is contagious, especially when it's authentic. The most powerful people in the world were in that room. They weren't talking about profits. They were talking about purpose. And man, I left there reminded that success without service is just noise. I, I also, like I said, met some incredible students. In fact, I got to interview one of them, and we talked at length about prosperity, stewardship, finances, and that conversation plus the other ones that I had just around the table, around lunch, around everywhere, just left me with this incredible renewed sense of life and feeling that we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be fine. I mean, kind of worry about the younger generation every once in a while, but man, these kids are bright, and we have a bright future ahead of us with these kids. With that being said, I got some exciting new features to focus on here with the Prosperity Lounge. The first is the launch of our new weekly podcast. Now, you're probably saying, "Hey, you're on weekly on Fridays, and I listen to you on Friday, and it's not the podcast." Technically, yes and no. So technically, what you're listening to right now is a live radio show, a live YouTube stream. You can rewatch YouTube whenever you want. In fact, YouTube, you can go there to youtube.com/the prosperity. Watch it whenever. You listen to this on Apple and Spotify. It's not a podcast. Technically, yes. It's just a replay of the show, but it's up every week. We put it up every Monday for your listening pleasure. This new feature is going to air every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, and that's when it'll launch on all the different networks as well. And it'll be a sort of like a live premiere. So it won't be a live video. We can get in the chat. We can comment on what's going on. But it's a short form, 30-minute video, 30-minute interview with guests from across the country, starting with who I interviewed when I was up at Liberty University on their podcast media realm. So a little bit different than what we do here on Fridays. Fridays we have nice long form content with a local guest, which we enjoy. We love it. And then we're expanding out a little bit with some national and international guests as well on the Wednesday. So these episodes are a little different. We're speaking with change makers. We're speaking with leaders, CEOs of dollar companies, ambassadors, small business owners, and like I said, change makers from all around. So we're starting next week with our first episode on Wednesday with Ambassador Haney. It's Haney. So Ambassador Haney is the former ambassador from the United States to Costa Rica, and he had the pleasure of serving under President Obama and President Trump. In fact, when President Trump took over in 2016, he was the only ambassador to stay, and we joked about that a little bit, why he stayed. But yeah, he was the only ambassador to stay for the first year or so under President Trump the first time around. And he's actually a local guy. He's from Nashville, born and raised. He's got family out here in Loudoun County. Comes around all the time, and we actually talked about um, what's he doing nowadays. He's living in Israel. He's working with the Argentine government to come up with something similar to the Abraham Accords for Latin America. Call it the Accords. He's working with the Argentine president Milei to help create this. So we talk at length about faith, freedom, what's going on in the world, and we even talk about Buc-ee's. You got to talk about Buc-ee's. Second new feature we got coming soon, and I want you all to be excited about this. Partner up with me. It's called our Prosperity Partners Program. So our Prosperity Partners Program is going to be a trusted directory of partners that you can turn to for all of your personal and small business needs. These partners are going to be vetted and must meet the standards of the Prosperity Line to qualify, so you know you're getting good quality people. If you're a small business and are interested in partnering, give me an email, comment on a video, email me at Joey, jrfinancialcoaching.com. That's Joey, Joey, at jrfinancialcoaching.com, and put prosperity partner in the subject. Well, that's what's been going on in my life. So tonight, we're sitting down with someone who knows about leadership, legacy, and community. Jeff Tallman. Jeff's a longtime Knoxville banker who dedicated his career to itemizing evidence through home ownership. The former mayoral candidate, a current candidate for city council in the 4th District, a Rotarian, a fellow Rotarian, and someone who believes that prosperity begins with personal responsibility. Let's get Jeff onto the program. Jeff, welcome to the lounge. Thanks for pulling up the chair.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
Thanks for being here. Wanted to talk a little bit about prosperity. The show centers around prosperity. We talk about the Prosperity Lounge. We have a great conversation about what that means for different people. What does prosperity mean to you?
Well, it's a great question. And I think prosperity is something we need to talk more about. We talk about wealth. We talk about how to make people's lives better. We talk about it, how to feed people and clothe people and house people. And I think we need to have a broader discussion, uh, a more comprehensive, more enthusiastic discussion about how wealth is created, the recipe for it, what are the ingredients, was individual, household, and community wealth created, because it's amazing. That's it sounds like it's realistic to talk about wealth, but at the end of it, it's really how you make people's lives better. It's how you unlock human potential, human capacity. In fact, I was unaware that there was a South American equivalent to the Abraham Accords. I've been to Argentina and South America. I've spent a couple weeks in Peru and a couple weeks in Argentina. My son lived in Peru for 18 months. Uh, South America is spectacular. I spent winter in Costa Rica, Puerto Vida. It's interesting. In some ways, the Accords is a recognition that the way to fund historic hatreds and antagonists is to focus on shared economic interest. It's that simple.
Right.
And what President Milei is doing is just absolutely exciting. Argentina, 100 years ago, was one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. It's one of the largest countries in geographic area. And anybody can go there and definitely put it on as a bucket list. Spectacular. The Buenos Aires is European in its architectural character. A lot of smart people that have essentially been held under by stupid politics for basically 2 generations. And so, what President Millet is doing is George Washington-esque in terms of significance, in my view. He's worth paying
Yeah,
attention to.
absolutely.
And what he's doing essentially is unleashing the native smarts and ingenuity of Argentinians.
Yeah. So basically, what the setup is an organization called the Genesis Foundation or Genesis Prize Foundation. Each year, as it explained to me, they award a significant person, usually of Jewish descent, $1 million prize. I think President Milei is the first non-Jewish person to win this award, and they need to direct it how they want it to be spent or distributed around. And so Milei decided he wanted to implement these Isaac Accords and use that money towards this program, getting this started, and having this, like you said, shared economic interest, shared, people, commonality between Latin America and the Middle East, especially with Israel. And we talked at length about how that, the Abraham Accords itself, how that laid the groundwork for what happened recently in Israel with the release of the hostages, and how that also laid the groundwork for the Isaac Accords, Isaac being the son of Abraham. That's how it was explained to me.
It's,
And
it's awesome. It's
yeah,
very exciting.
it's very exciting. So it's a good episode. I encourage everybody to tune in and say, Jeff, you and I talked a little bit about a concept that I absolutely love, and it's freedom through responsibility. And you said that real leadership begins when people stop waiting for permission and start showing up for their communities. Tell me a little bit about how that shaped the philosophy for you.
Well, it's interesting. Well, let me answer the question by recognizing your recent trip to Lynchburg and Liberty University. It's interesting. Sort of, I'm a son of the American Revolution. I'm a student of the Enlightenment. I've got a dozen or so family members, ancestors who are buried at Jefferson's private plot at Monticello, which
Mm.
is one of the great places to go to understand
Yeah.
both the grandness of American history and ideals, but also the frontier modesty of Jefferson. So it's interesting. The American Revolution is the operation word is liberty, and as a contrast, we have the French, who were so interested in and supportive of the American Revolution. Their version often went in another direction, and that was a focus on not liberty but equality. So there you have this great uh, fork in the road between uh, the the liberal uh, people who believe in liberty and liberalism. The Europeans that focus more on equality, we focus more on liberty. I think in some ways that's such a fundamental philosophical difference. Uh, Ours is a system of negative rights. In other words, there's very few rights given to the federal government. The rest are left to the people of the states. And so that's a powerful statement, not broadly understood. But I think it's brilliant because it essentially allows states to be laboratories of democracy. So what's appropriate in Alaska is different than what's appropriate in Rhode Island or Tennessee or New Mexico. So you get great diversity of civic experimentation there. Then, of course, we have great cultural differences within our country. We've got, a Mormon community in, uh, in Nevada, in Utah, in Arizona. We've got the West, the Pacific Rim is very Asian, and Alaska is one of a kind place. Uh, People in Maine are different. People in Tennessee are different. People in New Jersey are different, and so, but we can all essentially step up. And I think what's great about living in Tennessee is that we're a state that essentially, going back to our Scots Irish heritage, is I think we're high-minded. We believe in betterment. We believe in education, but we also are scrappers. We'll give you the shirt off our back, but by God, don't try to take it. And so I think on
Sure.
some level that strikes that's a crude way of describing a mindset of we will establish voluntary associations, but not compelled ones. And so I think that's a great balance for as a Rotarian, we believe in stepping up and doing our best in our own modest way to address need in the community.
Hmm.
And I think that's far more efficacious than, say, uh, top-down government focused, a typically inefficient allocation of resources, typically less efficacious for actually helping people lead better lives. So I'm a small government person. I believe the government most responsive and to the people is that which is closest to the people. That was from the founding fathers, and we don't give them enough credit for their wisdom in terms of but fundamentally understanding human nature. In fact, it's interesting. We wouldn't be able to create our country today based upon um, our lack of understanding and appreciation for human nature and human appetites, and so um, the paradox of
Yeah.
creating specific rights that are specific but vague and allow for a political process and allow
Mhm.
for the states to do their thing is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I thought about that a few times. If we were to recreate this today, what would it be like with social media and everybody criticizing back and forth? Like nothing. You see it nowadays. Nothing's getting done with the shutdown. Nobody's talking. So I can imagine
Well, I mean,
how that would go nowadays.
I don't know what's happening with the shutdown, and and it's sad and unfortunate,
Yeah.
and it's a political stunt, and people who are not prepared to lead. It's a temper tantrum.
Yeah. So something we talked about a little bit on our pre-show interview was this concept of, you know, how I close the show or freedom, live, or faith and action me. And we talk about this, I kind of described it as a triangle, freedom, faith, and action all kind of connected together. And this concept of you have to have all three working in synergy to have all three work. I'm repeating myself here, but you can't have freedom without faith and action being equal. If what happens is a lot of times people try to, whether it's government, whether it's personal, whether it's in personal relationships or in business, there's somebody who's trying to control one aspect of that. And so when they control one aspect of either your faith or the action that you can take, then they are controlling your freedom in a sense. So tell me a little bit about the neighborhoods that you are working in, the neighborhoods that you've seen, the neighborhoods you canvassed, the neighborhoods that you live in, that you worked in as a banker. What are you seeing as far as, again, going back to that personal responsibility and that freedom stuff? And you're talking about helping families move from renting to owning, personal responsibility, leadership, and that responsibility in that sense. Tell me a little bit about how that shaped how you lead or how you define leadership. It's a loaded question. There's a lot there.
Well,
I apologize.
no, no, that's quite all right, and there is a lot there, and it's interesting. Uh, I came to Knoxville to go to college and lived at Fort Sanders, and really fell in love with what I would call urban sidewalk
Mm,
neighborhoods like where your grandfather delivered newspapers.
okay.
And so I first moved into the neighborhood that's where my residence is now, in the Fourth and Gill neighborhood, which is a great urban neighborhood. It's right off right off the interstate. It's in near North, right on the edge of the central business district, and it was a neighborhood that was injured by the ill-advised placement of the interstate system right up the rear end of the city of Knoxville, uh, which was hugely injurious to the social fabric of Knoxville. But I liked it there, and I had a nose for value and wanted to be there. and served as president of my neighborhood association for 2 terms, and there were a number of discussions in the community about how we open the door to capital to help people revitalize housing stock. So you've got some great historic architecture, um, housing built with a sense of permanence you'll never see again, built with the greatest timber from the greatest forests found ever grew in the mountains, and with a real perfect architectural elegance,
Hmm.
a simplicity that is just perfect in my mind. So, but a lot of the housing was had deferred maintenance and was derelict, and so I became aware of and connected myself to a uh, a lending approach that allowed the opening the door to capital for people to update, modernize, recycle, renovate existing, older, depreciated housing. So in some ways, it became other bankers didn't have the product, didn't have the curiosity or the commitment. And for me, it was, I was motivated by a fundamental belief that there is a real sense of attachment when people own their homes. Uh, it is the most important wealth creation and prosperity creating thing. People own their own homes. I've opened the door to tens of millions of dollars worth of equity in for people to create equity in their homes, and that's wealth. That's generational transferable wealth. It's a really big deal, and it has a ramification for the tax base because a lot of these houses in neighborhoods that were historically redlined by by other bankers since mid 20th century. So I've really enjoyed it. I've made great friends. I felt a real sense of purpose with helping people achieve financial freedom. Um, um, we take it for granted. We live in a great country in terms of the availability of financial services and products to help people achieve stake ownership or home ownership. So I love being part of that. In fact, I consider myself a full-throated champion of enlightened capitalism. And I think people don't understand it. We don't talk about it broadly enough. And
No,
uh, but I'll continue to talk about it, be a champion of it because makes it makes human freedom possible, makes better lives possible, and so that's sort of in a nutshell, that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years.
so why does homeownership matter so deeply to the health of the community? And how do concepts like We talked about equity, but also ownership, pride, and revitalization play a role in that health of the community.
Well, I would say that a family unit is the basic building block of a functioning society, and shelter, a place where you can raise your family, where you can have safety and security, and and build wealth, something that you can bequeath to your children is a really big deal. And writ large, a community where you've got home ownership, people look out for each other, people have eyes on the street, they have eyes on each other, they have eyes on each other's children. Um, there's a classical uh, um, sense of how you have functioning societies. There's the late great British philosopher Sir Roger Scruton described neighborhood associations, which are abundant in the United States, as the small platoons of civil society, among which you find Rotary clubs are part of that,
Mhm.
faith communities are part of that, scout groups, so on and so forth. So, we're unique as a country, and Alexis de Tocqueville observed that when he visited the United States, that the Americans were uniquely predisposed to joining groups, and associations, and uh,
I can see that.
the,
Yeah.
so, and these are for good, and they're terrific. They need to be celebrated and protected and cared for. And what's so interesting is these small platoons of civil society are there to provide safety and sustenance when people have a hard luck. And we've got right now in our community, we've got a pretty pretty distressing circumstances with people on the street, and addiction and mental illness, and a criminal element that preys on them and preys on the rest of us. So we've allowed something in our society, in our city, that frankly is a core part of my city council campaign to re-civilize the street, and to do so with a compassionate approach to people who are clearly mentally ill and have issues.
Now, speaking of servant leadership and groups, things like that, we talked a little bit on the show previously about when people are in financial struggle, debt, thriving in isolation, and how we are very much, like you said, predisposed to um, being around people. We need to be around people. That's just what we need to do. You talked about Rotary, and I wanted to talk about a little bit of that because I'm a newer Rotarian, less than a year now since I've been in, but servant leadership. When you think about that concept of servant leadership in, let's say, the city of Knoxville, what does that look like to you? Let's just take off. Let's take off the candidate hat for a second. As a citizen, what does servant leadership look like in the city of Knoxville?
That's a great question. The guest speaker at my Rotary Club today was Leadership Knoxville, which celebrates servant leadership. And I firmly believe in consensus building and the foundational elements of servant leadership. I also believe in leadership, and sometimes
Mhm.
leadership uh, uh, creates dynamics that the group would not have achieved consensus on. Sometimes that means breaking things. Sometimes it means going to a place that the group had never imagined being able to go to. And I would sometimes maybe just describe that as the difference between management and leadership. Is that if you look over history, pivot points in history, whether they're political, military, in faith communities. I mean, Martin Luther did not. He waited for a consensus. He would have not posted his 95 thesis on the on the door to challenge Catholicism. So, um, and it was punished for it. So, it's interesting. It takes a balance. I mean, if you look at business and great moments in history. Sometimes it's with people who are uniquely predisposed to what I'll call leadership as compared with servant leadership. That's we need both. Um, but we need leadership. And leadership, sometimes when people, raise their hand, they get shot down, and we're quick to criticize. But I think we need to be open to a broad spectrum of participation and discussion of ideas. I think that's where we are in Knoxville. We have pathetically low uh, turnout, uh, and I think it's an issue. We need to have more discussion, more civic participation in our community. I think Knoxville is a unique place. We're in the middle of a metropolitan area with 1 million people. I consider Knoxville the international capital of not only the volunteer nation, but also the international capital of common sense. If we can bring the common sense man back in for being out in the cold, uh, we do some things that are a little bit upside down, in my view, in Knoxville. And it's real interesting. You can know a lot about human nature when you understand the basic incentive structures of things. Life can be hard when it's easy, but it's impossible when you don't align the stars incentive. In fact, that's part of what was brilliant about the founding fathers. Is they understood human nature and appetites and how to align incentive structures. So that's what we need to do in Knoxville, and that's what I'm working to do as a citizen, as a neighbor, as somebody in business, as a champion of capitalism, and on the ballot to represent the fourth district in Knoxville City Council.
Talk about leadership. Something I was thinking of something about leadership is starts really when people care enough to act. And talking about civic engagement, and I'll bring up something I went through recently. Is this past Monday, I went down to county commission to interview for the an open seat on the ethics committee. And this is my second attempt to do it. I did it 2 years ago as well. And 2 years ago, there were 5 of us that applied for 2 seats. This year, there's 12. So seeing the amount of people that are actively trying to get involved in politics or actively involved in civic engagement, that sort of uptick, I was very encouraged by the type of quality of people that pulled out for that, came out and applied. And, last time I was very disappointed. This time I'm like, man, there's some good candidates. I don't, if these other people get it, I'm happy and fine with that. So, but to your point is, you know, getting people to get up off the couch and care about something, it's very hard nowadays. Like people care from their couch, they care from their phone because they're tweeting and Facebook posts and everything, but to actually get up and do something, that that is tough. How would you how would you go about encouraging involvement with civics? Is there a magic wand that we can wave, or just a magic phrase we can say to get people off the couch, or is this just how it is?
Yeah, it's a great question. You go from to see a Lincoln Douglas, uh, Stephen Douglas, and Abraham Lincoln debate in Illinois for the Senate race in 1858. They had a debate in the street. It was like a major sporting event.
Mhm.
There was great interest, and I'm a little bit odd that way. I mean, uh, I find the debate of ideas very exciting, and people say, "You see that sitcom?" It's like, no, I was watching C-SPAN coverage of the the Senate Judiciary hearing, and I think it really goes back to a classical uh, uh, in antiquity in terms of the
Mhm.
Greeks understood that the ability to argue, cajole, persuade other members of the community, other citizens, and I really emphasize the word citizen, because the reality is it all depends upon citizenship and
Sure.
us paying attention and and voting, understand what the stakes are, and um, I think ideas matter, communication matters. Uh, the late great Democratic senator from New York, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, described politics as an argument about the future, and I
Mhm.
think it's a great way of describing it. So if leadership matters, decisions matter. And so if you care about the future, if you care about your, the life we're going to leave for our children, and we're going to, lead ourselves, um, I think it's important to pay attention and be involved. And it's just interesting. Human history is interesting. Human beings are interesting, and how we resolve our businesses is absolutely fascinating to me.
Yeah, and it goes back to that. I think we really can go back to the home ownership aspect and the community's pride stuff that we just talked about earlier. This one step, one stream mentality of people picked up one piece of trash, helped one neighbor, supported one small business, the ripple effect that occurs of people getting involved and eventually start caring about not just what's in front of them, but what's out there. Stop looking down and look forward. And I think that's where if you just do one little thing a day to help people, man.
It's funny that you say that. There was a leader in Knoxville, the late Dr. Paul Kelly. He was an educator, and he had a plus one club, which was about picking up one piece of trash a day. And I would see him at the Kroger, and we would high five and acknowledge I'm offended by trash and the desecration of our little garden of Eden corner of the universe that we inhabit, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Trash offends me. So I pick up trash, embarrass my family all the time. The fact that I will pick up trash.
One of the things I love about Knoxville in general is we talk about this community and this togetherness of people is for about a year and a half now, I've gone to the Motley Crue Community Luncheon, which is the first Friday of the month at Crown Plaza. Giving it a little plug. Hubert Smith, man, puts on a great event. And we got people from all walks of life that show up and we just break bread together and have a conversation. And it's a testament of how if we just have a conversation with each other, we can get a lot done and put differences aside and really work for the better community around us. And it's kind of what we're talking about here. Just getting out and having a conversation with your neighbor, checking in on them, making sure they're okay, and having pride in yourself, pride in your ownership, pride in your property, pride in your neighborhood, and well, pride in our city, man.
Motley Crue is great. It's a just a spontaneous assemblage of people who love their community. Hubert's been a friend of mine for about 20 years,
I love you.
and Knight is the the general manager of the hotel, and he's a world class host. Does it right. So it's a great way to celebrate, uh, our commonality. One of the things in my campaign, I'm all about unity.
Mm-hmm.
We hear lots of discussions about diversity, this, diversity, that, and I'm interested in the interestingness of the diversity of individual people. I think in some ways, I believe unity is strength, not diversity. The balkanizing society along group identity lines is poison,
Mm.
and it's immoral, it's illegal, and more importantly, boring. You are you, I am me, and you can't lump you into a category of anybody else because you're a one of a kind cat, and so
So I tell my wife, Jeff, I'm one on one.
that's right. And I hope she reflects that in your next personnel review.
I'm gonna get smacked there. I know that on the way home.
That's so that's a we're all unique in God's eyes, and I think that's a cool thing.
Well, on that note, let's take a quick break here. We're going to reset the program quickly. If you talked about at the top of the hour, if you're just joining us, I want to share again something great that's been going on inside the Prosperity Lounge. We're launching our brand new Prosperity Partners program, a network of business owners, leaders, and community members who believe in what this show stands for: growth, generosity, and impact. Prosperity Partners will be our way to highlight businesses and individuals living out prosperity through service right here in East Tennessee and beyond. If this sounds like you or someone you know, head over to prosperitylounge.com or email me at joey@jrfinancialcoaching.com. Put a comment in one of the videos, reach out however you can. We'll send you some details on how you can get involved, you can be featured right here on air. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss all the upcoming interviews and shows, especially our new podcast feature. It's going to drop every Wednesday at 6 o'clock. live on YouTube. We'll be in the chat having some conversations and communicating a little bit. So like and drop a comment on your favorite video. It's really important for us as well to make sure that YouTube knows that we are doing a good job. So definitely do that. Don't forget to share any of these videos with someone who needs to hear what we're talking about. All right, so we're going to move on here. One of the things, Jeff, that we talked about earlier that struck me was how you handle setbacks. You don't see them as failure, you see them as part of the process. I learned a lot about that this past week interviewing people. We're talking about failing forward, and I never heard that before. Failing forward. I had no idea. But I understood it. Every little no leads to a yes. I've heard that before. But tell me a little bit about that mentality of it's not a failure, it's part of the process.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy. You know, every uh, every task, everything we do is an opportunity to understand and to get better. Rather than just pure attitudinal. How we treat it. You see, uh, uh, I'm thinking of a line from a song by the late singer, musician, keyboard player, pianist Mac Rubin, also known as Dr. John. The name of the tune is uh, "Quitters Never Win, Winners Never Quit,"
Uh,
and play that for a bump sometime. Dr. John was a one of a kind guy. And, so that's sort of the deal. We have to stay strong. We have to move forward. It's one of the great lessons from athletics is to see everybody has setbacks, but it's
mhm.
the differentiation is how you respond to it, how you react, how you move forward, how you treat it as a learning lesson.
It's funny you mentioned that. I haven't heard that phrase. I haven't heard that phrase in a really long time. My uncle used to say that all the time. He was an international competitive athlete, Paralympian, competed in the Paralympics, which is the equivalent of the Olympics for people with disability, world record holder, a bunch of different stuff. I think he wrote a. He's gonna call me later and yell at me because I don't remember, but wrote an autobiography with that title. But he used to say that all the time growing up as his motivational speech. Winners never win. Winners never quit. Winners never win. Or I'm gonna get smacked later.
Yeah,
Now twice now.
maybe 10 push-ups. I'll be a witness.
I I need to start doing push-ups. No problem. Um, one of the things is people should know about you. You ran for mayor 2 years ago for the city of Knoxville. Came up short. Didn't deter you. You're back at it running for city council. Serving in government isn't the only way to make a difference. I believe something you had said. And how do you stay motivated to serve even when you're not holding a title, like in that in between time? How do people stay motivated if they're not? Maybe they don't want to be a city council member or run for mayor. What is something they could do to make a difference?
Oh, there's almost an infinite variety of ways to make a difference, contribute, and to volunteer and mentor and be a leader. And there's abundant opportunities in Knoxville. We're rich in those opportunities. But I've been involved civically for about 40 years, attention to a lot of things, and been frustrated by what I perceive as aiming low, selling short, and
Mm,
a preemptive compromise where we didn't achieve the full measure of what we were capable of. I'm of this part of the world, but I'm from far enough away to have what I call the audacity of expectation for how great we can be. I think that's one of the things I always love about great coaches. Pat Summitt comes to mind. She came and shook things up. She raised high expectations. We're going to play on the championship field. Here's what it's going to take to get there. And I love
mm.
that. I think at some level, that's what we like about our having world class athletes in our community is that you can. There's a lot of BS in it, but you either hit your free throws or you don't. You either hit with men on base or you don't. I think on some level, there's the you can't press your way to excellence on the field. And so I think in some ways that's what we like about sports. There's a lot of great lessons to learn from that of perseverance, of discipline, of focus, of working collaboratively with uh, teammates for shared goals. And so,
Absolutely.
but you know, I've made a lot of suggestions and entries to the suggestion box, and I'm sort of a little weary of suggestions in the suggestion box. I want to have a hand and run in the suggestion box.
It's funny. I was laughing when you said free throws. Whenever we watch basketball, it frustrates the heck out of my wife when people miss free throws. She yells. She yells at the screen. She yells, "They're free. They're free. You should be able to hit those. There's nobody bothering you." It gets her so frustrated, and I understand. It's like you talk about. Just so made me laugh. Um, One thing I want to talk about is we're Rotarians, and
Well,
what?
look, can I go back?
Yeah,
Because yeah, 2 years ago, I'm somewhat late in the cycle, but I saw that there was going to be an election cycle come and go for mayor in the city of Knoxville. Nobody was standing up, and I
mm,
thought that a community that is full of as much self congratulations as Knoxville is about our civicness and all that sort of thing, and that we were going to have no debate, no discussion about the city of Knoxville. I just thought that was pathetic. If we're not going to have a robust, thoughtful, principled debate about our business, then we might as well start playing touch football at Neyland Stadium. So, uh,
interesting.
I filled the vacuum there, and I thought I was entirely successful. I came within 1,150 votes of making the mayor go to the general election, which would have been a huge deal
Wow.
considering the power of incumbency here. But anyway, we gave the citizens a choice, so that was my measure of success right
Mm,
there. So the city council race that I'm in, they're all the same issues, and so it's the same. It's as equally powerful platform to have what I call a bidding war for how
sure.
cool you can make your city. So there, it's a with that attitude, I'm in a no lose situation.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes. My next question is, as one of the, I guess, one of the parts of the four-way test service or the motto of runners, service above self.
Yep.
Um, I always like to ask fellow Rotarians what that phrase means to you today.
Well,
Service above self.
I think it means is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And in my Rotary Club, we ask number five, is it fun? Because
I've heard that one.
we,
Yes.
we have to have fun. There was a great uh, comedian, um, uh, John Cleese, who was a member
Uh,
of Monty Python. He had a
hmm.
fabulous op-ed in the Wall Street Journal a number of years. I clipped it. It still sits in my favorite file of thoughtful writings. And he said that we too often confuse seriousness and solemnness. And his point was is
Wow.
that humor is a critical part of good business management, and that you can have fun and be light and still be deadly serious in your task. It's the humor that allows creativity and how you surround with the imagination of individuals and the team within the corporate world. So I think fun is really a fairly important thing. It's not just a frivolous frivolity. It's really about how we have fun with each other. Life's short,
Absolutely.
and if we can't have fun, then we are missing.
No.
So,
Fun. Yeah. Man.
but Rotary is great. Rotary in this part of the world is the embodiment of what the volunteer spirit is all about. I mean, we're not the wealthiest community in the world, but this Rotary District 6780 is actually one of the most generous of any Rotary district in the world. Uh, in fact, next week we've got Come to a Rotary Club. That is that Friday. The past Rotary International President, is going to be at Church Street United Church,
Wow.
and I will extend that invitation to any and all of your listeners.
Great.
Yeah, and to share, I'll share my information. Let us know so we can prepare to have lunch. It's a really big deal. A past Rotary International President. She's going to be in town, and for a variety of reasons. But it's a chance to hear what the impact of Rotary around the world, which is a pretty big deal.
Well, I definitely will put it on my calendar.
At noon for United Methodist.
I like the good one. I'm not an early bird. There's breakfast ones I can get to. So I like that. That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about what your plan is for city council. I don't like to get too deep into politics, so policy. I kind of want to. I'm bringing up a policy question. I'm feeling icky doing it on the show, so I apologize. But tell me, like you're going to get in there. You're going to win your district, and what does that mean? Because I know maybe you can explain. Let me back up. Let me start over. Explain to the listeners this year's process. That's probably even better. This year's process of electing city council. It's changed from previous times, where now you're voting in your district as opposed to voting citywide, and that's a big deal because you now get to elect people in your community for your community, as opposed to someone that lives across town voting for you and vice versa. So, what's the impact of that had on this race and going forward? Like the opportunities for more people to get involved? Is there diversity in the candidates now? Like, what is that? What does that mean?
Well, you're right. It is a big deal. We went for referendum last November, and the citizens of Knoxville defeated an effort that was made. The uh, city council. We've got 6 districts. We've
Okay.
got 3 at large, six districts, 1 through 6. Historically, the has been, or the way it's worked is that you run as a city council in a district, and uh, uh, the voters only in that district uh, vote for you or against you in the primary. In the general election, roll to citywide. Now, the change is that you run in the primary and then also in the general state in the district. And I think it's going to be good.
Okay.
It's a good change because it will bring more focus on the the geographic diversity of our community. And I think we too often look at the world of diversity through the narrow prism of race. And I think if have we have geographic diversity in our city that's very exciting, and the more you know about it, the more interesting it is. And within those geographies, we have class and culture differences that are also really important. And I think they're very important for how we understand how we make life better for some of our citizens in the most modest means and circumstances. Now that we help them be more productive, be both contributors and beneficiaries of the larger community prosperity. So I think it's very exciting. The concern expressed by some of my friends that this new regime would have people who are too narrow and parochial in view of the city, and that's not going to be an issue with me. I tend to take a regional view.
Hmm.
Knoxville's in the middle of a million-person metropolitan area, and there's all sorts of interesting dynamics in terms of economic development and pressures on infrastructure, on and on and on. So,
It kind of makes sense that you're kind of going back to this thing we talked about earlier of this one person, one block, one neighborhood mentality when it now with how everything's being done, as opposed to like citywide view of things.
well, we'll still have to have a perspective
Sure,
on
yeah,
city.
but now having the perspective of like, the fear of being in this more, like you said, parochial kind of concept. I mean, that's where their strength start because now you're taking care of your house first. I mean, there's a scripture quote: "Take care of your own house first, and you're worse than a non-believer." So taking care of your own neighborhood first. Now there's going to be priorities. You're in the sixth district. You mentioned Fourth and Gill. You're going to be going up there and saying, potentially, well, we need a new stoplight here. We need this here. There's stuff in my neighborhood that needs to be done, as opposed to we'll take, your neighborhood will take care of that first. You're going to be fighting for your specific neighborhood because your people put you in there, as opposed to somebody who lives in Holston Hills or Sequoia Hills that voted for you. It's your citizens and your neighbors are voting for you now,
Yep.
and that's getting back to that neighborhood
Yeah.
community engagement.
The district I'm running for is the fourth city council district. It's a spectacular district. Fourth and Gill is the southern urban part of that district. Holston Hills is the east end of Holston Hills is in the fourth district, and
Okay,
it includes Fountain City, it includes historic Old North, it includes Edgewood, Alabama, Bell Morris, Spring Hill,
wow.
Fountain City,
I was just throwing
neighborhoods.
names out
No, no, no.
there.
And then it goes. It actually includes Strawberry Plains, Midway Road, the most rural part of Knox County. So it's very interesting, and
Nice,
there's great neighborhoods and great people. That's I mean it's people
absolutely.
think, oh, it's just all work and big pain in the backside, but I tell you, I've met the most incredible people. We are so blessed to have the neighbors we've got in Knoxville, Tennessee, brother.
That's right. That's one of the reasons why I moved here. So we're going to move on real quick here. I got some questions that came in when I announced that you were coming on the show. Some people had wrote in some questions. So it's one of my favorite segments is our Q&A, and then I got two or three here I want to get to, and then I got a new segment I'm going to drop on you. I'm going to surprise you with it.
Bring it.
All right. First question is from Megan in Knoxville, who asked Jeff, you spent years helping people become homeowners. What's your best advice for young couples trying to buy their first home?
Oh, great idea is to uh, um, think about saving money.
Hmm.
Think about getting your financial profile in order so that you're not spending money
Reach it.
on goofy things.
Reach it.
And um, uh, there's a number of different paths to homeownership. I take pride in structured deals that board are responsible in terms of how creative they are, and don't necessarily listen to what constitutes conventional wisdom about what you can and can't do. Obviously, the more cash you've got to put into it, the stronger your credit scores are,
Mhm.
the lower your debt profile is, the better off you're going to be. But and that's a challenge actually in Knoxville. We've got people moving here from all over the world. There's upward pressure on pricing and inventory can be challenging, but if you sniff around, there's a deal to be had. So, put Megan in touch with me, and I'd be glad to either help make a homeowner out of it, or steer them in a direction that can best suit their needs.
Absolutely. So one last question before we move on. David from Maryville, right, wrote in, leadership takes courage. What's the hardest decision you've ever had to make as a leader?
Oh, that's the hardest lesson is making the decision to cross the threshold and run for public office. It's
Yep.
and it's not and to get up and stand before your community and argue, and the spotlight's on, and you have to be thoughtful. You want to be careful. You don't want to be hurtful. Um, you want to. It's real interesting things you have to think about
Sure.
to be effective, be uh, to be persuasive. So it's actually I'm enjoying as much as anything the mental exercise of how do you think about how do you interact with people?
Sure.
How can you be the most caring? So from a courage standpoint, I've got the some small superpower of mine is I'm incapable of embarrassment. So so
Great one.
so not worrying about making a fool of yourself. So I try to do that with caution.
Push the limits. All right. So before we close the last night, I want to give the listeners a tease as what to expect on every episode on the new interview series airing on Wednesdays. And that's our 10 question rapid fire lightning round for our guests. 10 quick questions. 10 quick answers, whatever comes to mind first. Ready?
Bring it.
What's the best book you ever read that changed your perspective?
Who? Well, I would say, biblical teaching is pretty strong and timeless. The Robert Penn Warren's book, All the King's Men, is one of the great books. Penn Warren was a Pulitzer Prize winning book, and he was had the capacity to structure sentences that were so perfect and exquisite. And I came to the realization the ability to write and communicate like that is a part of human evolution that is quite spectacular.
What's a daily habit that contributes most to your success?
Oh gosh, uh, weighing myself on my scales so that I can, stay fit.
Gotcha.
My wife and I have early morning ritual with hot tea and hot coffee, and as often as we can, we uh, we sit in the hot tub and watch the stars before the sun rises or try to catch the sun. So that's a great way to start the day.
What's the worst financial or business mistake you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Hmm. Uh, not uh, not liquidating my .com uh, 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 run up. I was in spectacular position, and as they say on Wall Street, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So I didn't get out at the right time.
If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur, past or present, who would it be?
Oh, it would have to be the president. I think the president is a one of a kind human being.
What's a piece of advice you ignored at first, but later realized was gold?
Hmm, that's a great question. Uh, uh, I think that my grandfather, when I first came to college at UT in Knoxville, advised me. He gave me connections with some business leaders that he knew, and I did not pursue them. And that would have been, I think back, and that would have been a big deal for me had I pursued those connections. So I was too smart too smart for myself.
And what is your personal definition of prosperity?
I think prosperity is the ability to be generous with people in your life, to be independent and self-sufficient. Um, 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 but like I say, the luggage racks on our house, so acquisition for acquisition's sake has its own issues. But it's real interesting, because we don't know how long we're going to live.
Yep.
Try to be prudent in our planning. We're going to be in an age where we're going to witness more centenarians than in human history. So,
Yeah.
it's sort of funny to think about. You can live to 120, retire at 80, so you've got only 40 years of destitution, to try to manage
Uh,
your retirement. So,
yeah.
so it's a challenge to how do you strike balance for living now, but anticipating the future.
Well, thank you so much. Just a little tease. We only got through a couple of them. We're up against the top of the hour, so I appreciate you answering those. Thank you for joining me tonight and doing what you're doing in and around Fort Knoxville, helping families, strengthening neighborhoods, and leading by example. Um, where can people find you?
Um, let's see. My phone number 865-406-6170. My email jff.talman at yahoo.com. And I'm on Facebook. And I'm not the most sophisticated social media. I'm a little bit of an analog dinosaur in that regard. But you've got my phone number and our toll free operators are ready.
And the election date is November
Fourth,
4th.
Tuesday.
Early voting is going on right now, I believe, right? Awesome. If the next conversation inspired you, join me inside the prosperitylounge.com. You'll find our free 8-step action guide, the Prosperity Planner, and details on how to become one of our new prosperity partners. Until next time, everybody, stay faithful, stay fearless, and remember, freedom lives where faith and action meet. The lounge is always open, and so is your next breakthrough. This is the Prosperity Lab. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for joining me tonight. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. And we're going to say goodnight. And thank you again. And see you guys Wednesday night for the live premiere. I will be in the chat answering questions, talking along, starting at 6 o'clock. And we will go from there. Thanks, everybody. See you then, and see you next week. Next week's going to be a fun episode. We got somebody coming up all the way from Florida. They're flying in to be on the show. Amazing. I don't know. I guess we're doing something right here. So everybody have a great night. We'll talk soon. Have a great weekend. And if you're out and about this weekend on Sunday, come to Harvest Fest in Farragut at Village Green. I will have a table there. You can come meet me. You can come say hello. You can get some stickers and some candy. Come in your best costume. You might win the costume contest. That's this Sunday in Farragut at Village Green from 2 to 6 p.m. Come on by, meet me, meet my buddy Truth Between Lines. In fact, go over to his channel right now at Truth Between Lines. He's putting up a video of a conversation we did the other day. Kind of a behind the scenes conversation video, so you can check that out and see what's going on over there. So give him some love. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Have a great night.
This is where momentum meets the sun. The prosperity